All right, make some noise just for you. Make some noise for you. It's like a self-love thing. Make some noise because you deserve it. You deserve noise. How great, how wonderful of a summit. This is just me earnestly being like, it's been really fun, hasn't it? That's just the role of the MC, just be really earnest and be like, yeah, honestly, I'm inspired. It's been really great. When I think, this is gonna make sense, I promise, but make some noise if you like the Hallmark Channel. Does anyone just watch Hallmark movies in moments that they're low? Yeah, great. Hallmark is amazing. I remember years ago picking up a Father's Day card from Hallmark and being like, I wanna see what they do as a streaming service. I want 90 minutes of this Hallmark card. And the thing I love about Hallmark, okay, is that it's millions of ways. Every time they're innovating of how people fall in love. You know what I mean? Sometimes he's in a magazine, she's in a small town. Sometimes she's at a magazine and he's in a small town. They just like every year they come up with these amazing stories of what it is to fall in love and they never run out of ideas and it's brilliant. And I feel like we need that for climate. I feel like we need Hope Mark or something. Because picture that, this is not even a joke. Think of how many times on screen you've seen the world end. So many. You know what I mean? So many. At this point, we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, okay. And just everything is falling. We're like, yeah. Think of how many times you've seen the world succeed on screen. Think of how many, you know what I mean? We just need Hope Mark. Just sometimes he's in a magazine and it's a future where we figured things out. You know, sometimes she's in a small town and it's a beautiful future. So here's what we're gonna do, okay? This is gonna be real. It's gonna take 1 minute and you're gonna meet someone and I promise this will be fun, okay? Thank you so much. People already rolling their eyes. You're gonna find a partner, okay? And then what you're gonna do with this partner or group of 3, and especially if you don't know them, this is great. You're gonna go back and forth, one word at a time, and you're gonna come up with an inspirational saying. So, Grisa, what if, can we demonstrate? Do you want to stand up? Okay. So we're going to demonstrate, okay? So we're going to come up with an inspirational phrase. And when you get to the inspiration, when you feel properly motivated, you're both going to know and you're going to go, Does this make sense? We'll demonstrate. So we're going to come up with one word at a time. So I'll start and I'll go like, I'll go, futures.
Bright.
When.
Can.
Sorry, can I talk to you privately?
Yes,
Hey, no, we should make a sentence. I didn't clarify that. I didn't clarify that. This is why we do this. It's a sentence and inspirational. Okay. We're gonna start over. Ready? Yeah. Abundance.
Is.
More.
Closer.
And then we all felt it. We all felt it. We didn't force it. So here's what's going to happen, okay? You're going to find a partner or a group of 3. The only rule is make sure everyone has a partner unless that person's like, I'm super not into this. Then we can leave them alone. And you have 1 minute, okay? Back and forth. And I want to hear some to make sure we've achieved inspiration, okay? 60 seconds. I'll keep an eye on the clock. Let's go. Let's do it. Perfect. It's happening here. Hey, good to see you. We met, I don't know, sometimes. But I love hip hop.
And I got you. YouTube looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw you like this yesterday, just describing it. So we definitely got to connect and see how we can push that forward.
Heck yeah.
Clarity, abundance, clarity.
Abundance, clarity. Yeah. There's a whole arc. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have time to share one. Does anyone want to share one? We'll give you the mic over here. Absolutely. All right. Let's listen. We're going to share one. Can you tell us your name too?
Logan.
Okay, everyone. Logan's going to share. their beautiful, inspirational, motivational phrase.
So this is deep. The world goes around people who do amazing work.
Oh, Logan, that's incredible. A perfect transition, Logan. Kind of crushed it, because I want to introduce our moderator, our panelists for this next panel. The world goes around people doing amazing work, such as you're right every time, such as the people on this next panel. So please make some noise for your moderator, the person who will be guiding the ship in this next panel, and that is Nikesa Mumbi Moody. She's the co-editor of Chief at The Hollywood Reporter. Please put your hands together. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful panel.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here with a great group of people for this amazing panel. I'd like for everyone to first introduce yourselves and talk about what brings you here today.
Hi, my name is Caleb Worthy, and I'm here because I've been a climate activist for almost 20 years now, and I'm very inspired by everyone that's on this panel, and I'm a fan of a lot of people on this panel, so I'm selfishly here as a fan and someone on the panel as well.
My name is Sheila Moravati. I'm the founder of Habits of Waste, and also one of my favorite campaigns that we started that everybody will hopefully know about by the end of today. It's called Lights, Camera, Plastic. And I'm also the author of a book called The Imperfect Environmentalist. Excited to be here.
Hey everybody, my name is Leah Thomas. I'm the founder of an organization called Intersectional Environmentalist, and the author of a book by the same name. And yeah, I'm just super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi everyone, my name is Carla Reyes. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a video game developer. I'm the founder and studio director of Anima Interactive, which is an independent games and immersive media studio that focuses on socially conscious experiences. And I'm here because I'm really excited by the narrative and culture change movements that exist within film and television, and seeing how we can apply some of those techniques within video games and how we can collaborate across sectors.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Pattinson. I am the CEO of an organization called Black Pearl. We are passionate about the intersection of culture and sustainability, which we work through fashion, design, music, and film. I'm a proud sustainable fashion partner for the Academy and wrote the Sustainable Style Guide for the Oscars this year. And I'm just looking forward to, just having this conversation and getting to know everyone else a bit more.
Caleb, I'm going to start with you. You talk about being an activist for 20 years. You're very young. Tell me a little bit how you started, how you got inspired to do this, and how you incorporate your activism in your work, and how Hollywood has responded.
Sure. So I'm from Canada. I'm from Victoria, BC. And thank you. Shout out to the Canadians. And I first became an activist through a teacher. When I was in the 9th grade. He showed us an inconvenient truth, and he walked into class one day and said, we're actually not going to talk about the normal curriculum today. We're going to talk about the issue that will define your generation and that your generation needs to help solve. And that was a very empowering moment for me. I felt like I had ownership over an issue, and I felt like he gave me the encouragement to actually make a difference. After high school, I started working on a Disney Channel show called Austin and Ally, and thank you. And with that, a lot of young people started following me. And I was trying to navigate how I can best use that platform to create real change. And I decided to meet them where they're at, which is their schools. Because a lot of my fans wanted to make a difference. They wanted to be involved in the climate movement, but they didn't have the power to vote or use their wallet to make change happen. So we created this thing called the Green Schools Campaign, where we help schools transition to 100% clean renewable energy. And Hollywood's been really wonderful about it. I mean, there's a lot of support with other artists in this industry. I've met some of the most incredibly motivational people that I've met through this industry, and also brought into the climate movement as well. I'm always happy to recruit more of my friends to also join as well.
Yes, definitely. Sheila, you have had a great impact on so much of what, especially in California, as far as how we consume. As far as in Malibu, you helped get rid of plastic straws. I'm sure some of you might know about, like, if you order from Uber, like if you don't get utensils, that's a good thing, and you have to ask for it in part because of what Sheila has done. And yes, that's it. And these are huge initiatives that some may have felt like was impossible to pull off. What kind of coalition building was needed in order for you to have the impact and to have the initiatives that you have created?
Well, it's actually really funny because the Malibu plastic straw ban and cutlery ban was the first one in the world. And funny enough, being in a room like this, you guys should know that we were able to pull that off because of a documentary film called Straws. So I went with my 2 kids and asked the city of Malibu if they'd be willing to screen this film so we could educate the public and then go in and ask for the plastic straw ban afterwards. And everyone's questions were answers. Everybody was able to learn the issue. So in this instance, you know, film was imperative because it was new. This was happening in 2017 and it didn't pass till 2018. Meanwhile, there was so many organizations that were also fighting for this and making sure that everyone understood the issue with single-use plastics. I was just lucky enough to go into the city of Malibu with a great film and educate the public and make the ask. So it does take a lot of people doing different parts and pulling different levers to make impact happen and stick. I'm really proud to be a part of that one because it was a ripple effect, like you all probably remember, just one city after another, one country after another participating. But afterwards, people kept saying to me, well, what about all that plastic cutlery I get when I order in? And once again, you know, Leah included, we made a video through BuzzFeed and had some really familiar faces on there as well, including Adam Devine and Laura Dern, making fun of it and trying to come up with this like sexy video, trying to say like everybody has one, even your grandma does, and we're talking about the junk drawer that you don't know what to do with. So using that and pushing it all the way to the state of California, up to Sacramento, we were able to pass AB 2026 and pass all across the state and globally on Uber Eats, Postmates, Grubhub, and DoorDash. So again, all sorts of different nonprofits were a part of that. And since then, we've saved well over 1 billion pieces of plastic cutlery from entering the waste stream simply from a toggle. And so I think it is collaborative for sure, but it also takes everybody doing their part wherever they can and whatever angle they might push from. So yes, a lot of collaboration.
And I just want to also, I want anyone on the panel to feel free to answer some of these questions. But one of the questions I have, you talked about like making it fun and making it sexy, and how Hollywood has been such a huge part of so many cultural movements, and how effective has Hollywood been in the climate change, and has there been enough content to continue to move the needle?
Is this for me?
Anyone.
I can just jump in on a little bit of it, but I just want to say, like, the reason we started Lights, Camera, Plastic is because of the impact Hollywood has. You know, when you look at smoking and the huge nosedive you saw with smokers after smoking was taken off film and TV, all of a sudden you start to realize a direct correlation between our behavior and what we're seeing on screen. And now there's so much science proving this. So if I was able to make a massive difference to shift the value system throughout society, of course I'm going to go to Hollywood and ask to swap single-use plastics for reusables. That was my first ask through Lights, Camera, Plastic, and ever since then we've evolved it to be and beyond. So showing more plant-based meals, showing public transport, bicycles, you know, vintage clothing, whatever it can be, turning off that water when the character's brushing his teeth, showing aspirational behaviors because it is just so powerful.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Something that really inspires me about Hollywood and film and TV, I was talking about narrative and culture change. And I guess the theory of change is that entertainment shifts culture and culture shifts society and potentially even policy. And one case study that I often allude to, which is not necessarily climate related, but it's a powerful study of how a piece of media could directly influence policy, was with the film Roma. This was Participant Media and Alfonso Cuarón and Netflix. They partnered with a nonprofit called the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and they ran a screening campaign of Roma, which was about an indigenous domestic worker in Mexico, for those that haven't seen it, who traditionally don't have labor rights. And so they were actually able to influence policy where they enacted the National Domestic Workers Bill of Rights after that campaign. And so that's a very inspiring movement, and we're trying to see how we can do that within video games as well, that hopefully inspires more filmmakers too.
Carla, I want to follow up and ask you, like, in order to make that change, in order to make that impact with the gaming audience and with that kind of content, is the feeling first that you kind of create a game and then infuse some of the themes in it, or do you is the plot of climate change or whatever it is, whatever cultural thing, going to be central, or you sort of it's to make it the most engaging thing you can and then infuse it with some messages?
Yeah, so there are different approaches with video games as a medium because I believe they're the most immersive art form, and the difference between a more passive medium and video games is that you as the player are actually engaging with this content and you have agency and autonomy, and so your choices have consequences, and so there's more than just the aesthetics or the narrative, although those are really important pillars of video games, but there's also the mechanics and the decisions that you make throughout the experience. So if I'm in an RPG or role-playing game and I'm choosing between hunting for my food in the forest or picking berries, right? Like those are the choices that you make. An example, I used to work for the studio that makes Pokemon Go, if anybody here has played that. But one really strong example of how they banded community together, not just in the virtual world of the game, but also in the physical world, is on Earth Day, they ran an ocean beach cleanup where in different local communities within the game, they spawned Pokemon, more water Pokemon near the oceans. And then so it meant that a lot of families were gravitating toward the water, and then they had local community organizers and volunteers facilitate these ocean cleanups. And so I think that's also a really powerful way to engage people as this active medium.
Leah, as an intersectional environmentalist, you focus on the disparities that climate change has on people of color and marginalized communities. Do you feel that there has been enough focus, especially from Hollywood, on that particular issue? When we think about climate change, a lot of times it's in a very broad way.
I would say short answer is no. But the more hopeful answer is I feel like there are a lot of people trying, and I think especially in the documentary space, there are a lot of incredible documentaries about environmental justice. I don't remember the name, but the Hip Hop Caucus screened a really amazing documentary, I think, at the start of the year. So please look that up, and there's a lot of incredible documentaries on environmental injustice. However, when it comes to the big screen or even just, different TV shows, I think environmental justice narratives are actually something that people would find to be a lot more relatable. There are a lot of movies that talk about like the carbon in the atmosphere and the climate catastrophe and all of these sorts of things that are very important to discuss, but I would love to see more TV shows and movies talk about like, oh my God, I have to plug my nose every time I drive over this highway because there's this stench in my neighborhood. And you can even make it funny, and then the characters find out like, wait, you're saying there's a toxic landfill here, or there's like a toxic waste site, or even just people talking about just mentioning the fact that there's more asthma in their community or respiratory illnesses, or there's not enough trees or different things like that. all things that could be considered environmental injustices or food apartheid, etc. So I would say I'd like to see more of those narratives kind of woven into TV shows and documentaries. And it doesn't have to be the entire film is about environmental injustice, but it's just the characters kind of interacting with their day-to-day, because that's just the everyday reality we're all living through right now.
You make a good point. I wonder if you feel that the more successful, and this is to all of you, the more successful messages is kind of dovetailing over what I was talking to Carla about. It is not necessarily the focus of the content and is woven in, or do you feel like it's sort of like an inconvenient truth and those type of things that you really have to shine a light and have it be the subject in order to really kind of make that impact with audiences?
I will just jump in here. I think that messaging can be impactful in many ways, and it should have a multi-tiered approach, because we respond to different forms of communication. You know, you learn that even, you know, if you start a new role, like I've started jobs before, and they have like briefings on the different communication models they use within the business. There's this like realization that some people are kind of kinetic, they respond to kind of like action-led incentives. Some people are really emotive, you need to connect on the feeling wavelength. Some people are super factual, and I think it's not this one specific way to do it. It's being kind of nuanced in the many different ways we do it. And to kind of layer up on that, I think one of the challenges we have is, and this is my opinion, and I'm coming from, just to kind of caveat this, I am coming from a background of coming into sustainability through design and through designing for the red carpet. So my whole initial kind of premise of sustainability is that you have to design it. You know, it's kind of, you know, my beginning thing was red carpet green dress at the Oscars, where I was continuously having to think, how can we still retell sustainable fashion on the Oscars red carpet with people? So how can we kind of do a vintage piece or an upcycled gown, or, you know, incorporate recycled wrappers into a bodice of a Vivienne Westwood dress and educate about sustainability for lots of different people who might not have had this conversation before? And what was always really important was recognizing, A, that people have different levels of understanding, you know, so we have to kind of provide solutions that can be understood on like a complete spectrum, like even across language. You know, we're talking about sign language, we're talking about multiple languages, we're talking about doing it in a way where it reaches people who've never heard the conversation, and it reaches people who are deeply into it. And I think you can only do that with like a multi-tiered approach.
Mm-hmm. Are we gonna?
Just a quick thing. I was mentioning earlier, like, I'm a really big sci-fi nerd, and I think if there's any genre that's talking about environmentalism in a really engaging way, it's sci-fi. So even if you're talking about, like, you know, Dune, the books or the movies, like, you're talking about water inequality, you're also discussing what happens when there's a community that doesn't have access to water, and that really mirrors a lot of real world things. Or even one of my favorite shows on Netflix, it's called Sweet Tooth, if anyone's seen it. It's like the cutest show, and it weaves in so many different things like healthcare inequality, animal rights, and also, you know, the appreciation of nature and things like that. So I would say I do want to see more shows and, you know, movies that it doesn't need to be a climate justice film. Just like it reminds me of, you know, when people talk about environmentalism, they sometimes think we have to like go into nature instead of realizing that we are in nature every single day. I think with films and TV, if we could remember, it doesn't need to be an environmental film because we live on Earth. So every film that we make, it should have some environmental themes.
How does it affect your choices when it comes to the projects you take on as far as your activism?
I mean, I would never do a show that denied climate change taking place. You need to sometimes play characters that deny climate change, but you want to see them be wrong by the end of the movie. It does change it because you want to make the right choices because you know that especially young people really pay attention. So especially if there is a movie that has a climate message, I'm much more likely to take that project than another project. In terms of messaging for young people as well, talking about whether or not we're very upfront about the messaging or if it's more subliminal, I really hope that more studios and networks, encourage their writers to have programming for young people that is very honest and blunt about the crisis, because young people are trying to learn about it, and they may not have access to that on social media or at their home. So I think some of these young networks, I'm really encourage them to really embrace those kind of stories.
And how does that also affect not only the content but behind the scenes, as far as like when you're on set and you might not have a huge impact on like the production and so forth, but do you think about that, how green is the project?
Luckily, there's a lot of amazing environmentalists in this town. I've worked with many through Climate Reality Project, and they've done an amazing job at working with the studios to make sure that sets are as green as possible. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, but I am grateful knowing that there's a lot of people who have voices at the table who are advocating for that right now.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, because within video game development as well, I think it's really important to recognize that we might not be the experts as creatives and artists in this specific subject or topic, and so we need to bring in the experts and we need to collaborate with them, and that needs to happen, that needs to be embedded in the DNA of the project, right? It shouldn't just be an afterthought and say, okay, the consultation will happen once we've already gone through production. So, you know, in our studio, we do a lot of partnerships with nonprofits, with academic institutions, and make sure that we have the right people in the room behind the stories and behind the product that we're developing.
I'm curious what you hear from gaming fans. Are they looking for more of this or other content? Are they looking for more of this content? Is it something that you consider a growth area?
Yeah, there's actually a really industry-wide initiative, which I think one of my colleagues, Deborah Mensah-Bonsu, that spoke yesterday, might have alluded to it, but it's called the Playing for the Planet Alliance, and it's essentially a consortium of several video game studios from around the world that have banded together in partnership with the UN Environment Program, and their whole MO is to reach and teach over 1 billion gamers globally about climate change, and so they've been implementing what are called green nudges within games, and they conducted a survey last year, and over 80% of, I think there were hundreds of thousands of participants, about 400,000 participants in this survey, and over 80% said they wanted more, they wanted to see more of this type of content. So there's a lot of positive reception, and yeah, it's definitely a growth area.
Mm-hmm. Can I just add something that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something, because even though it's not the same as kind of gamification and what you're doing, I did find we were part of this really great campaign. It was called Gen Zero. And one of the things I really liked about it, so it reached like 323 million people. But the thing I really liked about it was essentially it was bringing together users to incentivize them to actually carry out specific tasks. And if they carried out those tasks and they got kind of a certain number of points, and they could redeem those points for kind of like a mentorship with XYZ, or kind of training experience with so-and-so. And it also embedded kind of learning in all of those different activations. And the reason I liked it is because I think there has to be this balance between the digital interaction and then the physicality of doing. And we're really passionate about that, especially kind of with Black Pearl around education and reskilling. This idea that part of the way that we can overcome some of the challenges we're facing, especially in the landscape of climate change, is a reskilling or reconnection with the solutions that are really easy and low-hanging fruit to do. So you had people kind of saying, oh, you know, go and do a clothing swap with like 2 of your neighbors, or, you know, walk to work instead of driving, or whatever it was. Some things were easy, some were difficult. And the other reason I loved it was because I felt that there was a solution for everyone. And a lot of the time, the feedback we get is there isn't a solution for us, or what we're being told to do, we can't do. Like, we're priced out, we can't access it. You're telling us to buy organic, like the local supermarket is however far away. You're telling us to buy recycled XYZ, we can't afford it. So I really, really do recommend everyone have a look at that, because I felt like the solutions in that platform, a very good example of how we can cater to different people's capabilities and capacities as well. And it's not a game, but it was kind of a similar concept.
I think you bring up a great point in that some people feel like it's inaccessible, but some people are also very overwhelmed and think, well, even if I use the plastic straw, even if I use my reusable fork or, walk to work, there's so much, like every day I'm reading like, oh, the Earth's temperature is gonna go up like by 2 degrees and whatever. How do you create content and give hope when the narrative around climate change and sustainability can often be so dispiriting?
I would love to take this question. That's actually the reason I wrote my book. The idea of imperfect environmentalism is just that you are allowed to participate in this movement. Even if you're not an environmentalist, you do what you can where you can, and there's no judgment. Just participate somewhere, somehow. I'd love to start hearing people say, instead of, oh, but I'm only one person, I'd rather start hearing people say, I am one person. And it takes that one person to create that ripple effect. And there's nothing different about any of the people that are sitting up here than anybody else out in the world. We just put one step in front of the other and keep on moving forward. I also think that we really have to remember that the onus shouldn't just be on us to tackle climate change. It's really about who we put in power and whether or not they're basically being funded by the fossil fuel industry. So it's a lot bigger, and that's just one of the angles that we can look bigger and put our voices towards convincing corporations to do better, legislators to do better, create more laws. So it's a little bit of everything, and I don't want to make it more overwhelming, but I just want you to know that you are one person and you really do matter. And if we look at it like that, then we have close to 8 billion people who can activate some level and do something.
Just adding on to elected officials, again, speaking for young people, there's a lot of energy around the elected officials at the national level, but the local level is really important. And I find that a lot of the times that gets lost in the narrative. And for, like with Green Schools Campaign, we have so much success working with local school districts. And this is the kind of people where, if 100 people go up to the White House and say, we demand this legislation, they might not even know you're there. But if you go to your local representative with 100 people, they might actually change their vote. That's enough to make a huge impact. And I've noticed that young people, when they're encouraged to do that and have that kind of civil activation at a young age, they're really empowered to make a difference for the rest of their lives.
So Matt, I want to talk to you about your Sustainable Red Carpet Guide, which is about so much more than re-wearing outfits, so much more activism and policy in there. But you partnered with the Academy. Can you tell me a little bit about working with the Academy and how easy or challenging that was to get them on board? And maybe I would love to hear from other people too, as far as getting established organizations involved in your work?
That's a really good question, thank you. So first of all, I'm coming from a space of really believing in the power of creativity and self-expression. And I'm somebody who really advocates for individuals to connect with their own creativity. This will segue to the guide, I promise. And the reason I say that is because in the design, fashion, also music, and also entertainment industry, ultimately there's this meeting of creativity, and there's individuals being empowered to express that creativity, which gives us all of these beautiful gifts. It gives us our songs, it gives us our clothes, it gives us these movies that we disappear into and feel seen in. And so what I wanted to do with the Academy was essentially make sure that we wove that into it, the idea that we're mirroring and amplifying a creative space here, and it's a business industry too, but if we can get people to connect with the fact that their clothing is an expression of so much more than just, what are you wearing? This brand name. It's a whole conversation piece, and maybe we can do something there. So I'd had maybe kind of 8 years of working on sustainable fashion at the Oscars. One of our ambassadors is here, Tati Gabrielle. She stood up and did a plant-based, biodegradable piece on the red carpet. So I had years of building some sort of a narrative around sustainable design. But the Academy had basically said that members were interested. And I think that that's these are the positive stories. You know, people were coming to them, people were asking them questions, and that's what you do when you do something. Like, you can't predict the obvious places that you'll inspire others, but you do. You know, I worked with Billie Eilish and her mother Maggie Baird, and they did everything from a vintage statement to a plant-based one. But then suddenly, like, Billie's team and Maggie's team, the styling teams are asking questions. The PR's asking questions. You know, the people who are directing the movie that she's in, because it's in a press release, they're asking questions. So it has this beautiful ripple effect. And I think the Academy cottoned on to the fact that they wanted to step up and say, hang on, we want to provide a resource for people, but we want to make sure that that resource speaks to everybody. So you've got your kind of your stars, and I think, honestly, I think everyone who walks that carpet is a star because they've contributed to the content. But they wanted to kind of have, like, the sound engineer who's coming, like, what's the solution for him? You know, if Armani's not doing a bespoke suit for him that's made out of, you know, like banana leaf, because, you know, we're going everywhere, then what can he do, right? Or, you know, somebody who's in Killers of the Flower Moon in the indigenous community, how can we include them in the guide? And so that was what was really important. It wasn't hard getting them on board, but it is difficult getting kind of highly visible organizations to step out. And I think that's because people are scared of misstepping. So, you know, stepping out and doing something and then kind of getting torn into pieces for all the things they didn't do. And that's something we have to address, because we have to allow for mistakes. We're all going to make them. I'll make them. You'll make them. We'll all make them. And there has to be space for people to try something. Maybe it's not perfect. Tinker it and come again. And I'm just really grateful that they gave me the chance to do that, because we definitely spoke to lots of different communities through that.
And Sheila, you've worked with Paramount and Universal. Talk a little bit about, those are huge conglomerates who have embraced your campaign.
Yeah, I was really lucky also because thanks to the Hollywood Reporter, Deegan Penner, he wrote about this idea I had called Lights, Camera, Plastic. And I posted it. I'm like, look how exciting, you know, the Hollywood Reporter's on there. And all of a sudden, a director is like, I love this idea. Her name's Kat Quiro. She's like, I love this idea. I'm doing it, and let's work together. So sure enough, we come together on a film that J.Lo was in. It was called Marry Me, and she showed zero plastic on screen, and that was a Universal film. And then before you know it, working together with the entire group at Universal and their Greener Light campaign and program, and making Lights, Camera, Plastic be a part of that was such a proud moment for me. And they recently just did Abigail, same thing, and they produced it with no plastic on screen. So, you know, we definitely want to make sure that we honor the effort being put forward by so many productions. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I want to just say that many people wanted to participate in this campaign earlier on, and maybe they're a set decorator and they said to me, but I don't want to get fired over this. I don't want to put a metal straw and the director get mad at me. So the entire premise of Lights, Camera, Plastic is assessing all of the issues that would have gone, you know, made this not happen, and then providing tools in this toolkit so that anyone below the line can write an email or copy the email we've written for them for above the line folks, and vice versa, showing that this production cares about this issue of showing plastic on screen, and now beyond that too, and here's why, and let's all work together to make it happen. But that's really what a beautiful thing, and it was all because, you know, Hollywood Reporter wrote about it the first time. And so I say thank you, because that's like part of the thing I was saying earlier. It's about all different types of groups and people contributing to a goal of something better, and that's what happened there.
That's great. Thank you. And I think it's really interesting that you brought up that there is fear. You know, you talked about that too, you know, that, oh, will I get fired? Will I get ripped apart? And, you know, it still is something that people, it's new enough that people still feel like they have to navigate that.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, I think I can speak a little bit more to some of the challenges within the video games industry. So I was working in AAA, which are like the larger video game studios that are sometimes monolithic and might not be thinking about impact in the first instance, right? They're more focused on just creating the entertainment that they're creating. And that's one of the reasons why I actually decided to spin off and start my own studio and imbue the values that, you know, I have to try to find allies and advocates and take collective action. And I think grassroots campaigning is really, I don't know if it's underrated, but I really appreciate it. And it's something that we've been doing at the studio level and being able to find advocates. So as an example, for those who haven't seen some of the games outside in the lobby area, we hosted this, what's called a game jam, which is effectively a hackathon, but for game developers. And our whole call to action was to ask game creators to think about climate futures and integrate those themes into video game prototypes. And we ran a similar event earlier this year, which was focused on justice broadly and different lenses of justice. And we showcased those at South by Southwest, and we had tens of thousands of people engage with them at the South by Southwest Creative Industries Expo. And that just started with Cinereach, who were the partner that ran this event with our studio. But it just, was an idea that spawned with 2 to 3 people, and then it became this whole movement. And now, thank you so much, Hollywood Climate Summit for showcasing some of the projects today. But I would really encourage folks to see so that you can get a sense of how those climate themes can be integrated into games.
Leah, I wanted to ask you, especially since so much of your work talks about the intersectionality of environmentalism, in this day and age where there's so much attacks on DEI and focusing on race and so forth, and more, how does that affect what you're doing, especially in environmental justice?
I would say, I'm not happy about it. So critical race theory is something that's being banned. Intersectionality is something that's being banned, and we're living in a really complicated, that's the nicest word that I could use, point in history in the United States that's quite disappointing to see so much incredible literature and theories written by people of color that are now being challenged. And I'm sure a lot of us are very confused because in 2020, everybody had that little black square. And then all of a sudden, there's just this like stomping down of DEI, and we're seeing diversity programs also being banned in a lot of, state schools and things like that. So it puts us in a complicated period of time. And I think that we might start to see similar things when it comes to climate education as well. And I think if there's any positive, it's a reminder that we should make sure we're finding allies and rainbow coalition building. So climate folks, it's time to make connections with racial justice folks and social justice folks, because right now we are living in this really difficult point in time, and it's really going to take all of us to kind of stand up against these systems that are making it so environmental injustices and social injustices can continue. So if there is any silver lining, it's just remembering that there's, power with coalition building. It's time to get to know people who might feel like unlikely allies and really resist the notion of lateral oppression, if anyone's familiar with that. It's basically when sometimes people are like, okay, well, my community or my particular environmental issue is like the most important. So no, because I was in that film that you did, even as the funny PSA. And it was just such a beautiful example of coalition building, because there were actors, there were racial justice folks, there were all sorts of people who came together, and we need to continue doing things like that. It's really going to take all of us. Yeah.
You find there are challenges in coalition building these days? And what are the obstacles that have made it more difficult for communities to come together for such an important cause?
I'd love to weigh in here because, so the foundational work that Black Pearl does, as I mentioned, is around culture and sustainability. And one of the things I think a lot of the industries that can be defined as kind of creative, fashion, music, film, etc., is kind of the commodification of culture. So the idea that something is commercialized and sold without kind of the, I suppose, inherent communities that have helped build that culture benefiting from it in any way. And I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes, and I think it's true for the word collaboration, which I have heard earlier, in the fashion industry, which I'm coming from, and now I'm working across film and entertainment, people will say we're collaborating, but actually in every sense it's an anti-collaboration, because you'll have kind of like, if this luxury conglomerate's in this coalition, or if they're kind of signing up for this reduction act, we won't be part of it. You know, it's kind of like on the surface level, it's a collaboration, because look at this cohort of people we have stepping up for this cause. But when you actually go behind the scenes, these folk weren't invited, these guys were excluded because they're competitors. And I think that whole thing is very egocentric. And we have to get away from that, because like really to get where we're going, we all need to get there together. Like, we have to be in a vehicle with people we don't like sometimes, right? You know, and we were able to do that. Like, we all have family and in-laws, and sometimes like not everyone gets along, you know, but that's okay. But we have to be in the vehicle together. So I think that's my main or only thing. And so with Black Pearl, I often feel like a bit of an outlier, because I feel fortunate that I've been able to partner with the Academy, but I feel like I'm coming from an outlier status, because I don't subscribe to this whole idea of in and out, VIP and other, and it's all part of this collaboration thing. When we say collaboration, we have to mean it, and when we say kind of coalition, we have to mean it, and it means that we might be uncomfortable sharing spaces with others, but it's, to me, the true sign that we actually do want to get to the results that we need.
Amazing. I see the clock coming down. I would love to ask each of you what you would want people to take away from the summit and action items as far as making a difference.
I would encourage people to realize, as this has been discussed in the panel, that the climate crisis isn't a solitary issue. It's actually a complex web of many societal issues. And I know that a lot of people are already working on different causes that they really care about. And it is important that we work together, because, as we said on this panel, the climate crisis is also a gender equity issue, it's a racial justice issue, it's a poverty issue, it's a healthcare issue. So if you care about an animal rights issue as well, if you care about any of those causes, you're also a climate activist already. So it's important that we do have that coalition, that we work together on those causes.
I think for me, my wish for anybody visiting this summit is to, implement one thing you've learned in your workplace, in your home life, and tell a friend. Start that ripple effect, because it starts with this room right here. It starts with all of us right now.
One of my favorite things to read, it's called Lessons from the 60s by Audre Lorde. It's a transcript of a speech that she gave. And she was talking about how one of her biggest concerns when looking back at the 60s and civil rights organizing is that there was a lot of infighting that had to do with people's different theories of change. And we've talked about this earlier, and I love what you said. It's okay if people have a different theory of change, whether they're organizing, they're grassroots activists, maybe it might be a corporation. Whatever it is, we all should work together in making sure that we coalition build together. So I think that's what I'd like everyone to remember, that kind of identify what your theory of change is, find other people and organizations that think similarly to you, and then coalition build with people who might have a completely opposite theory of change, even if you on the inside deep down are I don't get it. It's okay. Work with those people, learn from them, and yeah, read that transcript, Audre Lorde, Lessons from the 60s.
I think on the collective action through line, one takeaway that I hope everyone can have is to think outside of maybe your own communities or your own circles or your own industries. I'm not technically in Hollywood, but I'm here today, and I think I have so much to learn from everyone here, and even just all the panelists here. We all come from and represent different sectors, and if we can all come together and collaborate in some capacity, that could be interesting. And it's just, there's so much value in having diverse perspectives and seeing what happens when they converge. And I think that's really electrifying, and I'm hoping that some of that can happen now, and I'm sure it has happened all week. So yeah. I
would just say amplify this summit, because this team has worked so hard to pull this together and just amplify it, tell people about what you've heard, encourage people to participate, encourage people to interact with the Hollywood Climate Summit, because I think the programming that they've delivered and the people they've brought in and brought to reflect different perspectives is an example of what we're all talking about. Like, they've done it so well, you know, across to having this interpretation happening, you know. I rarely see this. So that's what I would say, just like keep supporting them and keep amplifying them.
Well, thank you guys so much. It was just such a great conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. I think we're supposed to...
That was breaking the mold. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Amazing. All right, here's what's gonna happen, okay? We're gonna have a break, but I've been told, and this is juicy info, that the next panel is incredible. And it starts on time. So it technically starts at 5:45, but I think we should all make a mental commitment and pretend it starts at 5:40. Okay? So what time does the next panel start? 5:40. Perfect. Crushing it. I'm gonna be such a good dad one day. Hey, that's it. We've got like 10, 15 minutes, and I'll see you at 5. All right, thank you. We'll see you so soon. Thank you for being here.